Hello and welcome everyone to our last session of our focus week on business outcome driven EA. This is the latest installment of our EA Impact series. We hope that you've enjoyed the past sessions and speakers and have benefited from the insights throughout the week. We'd like to welcome you obviously to our last but not least session. My name is Enrique Lobo-Cruz. I am the Market Development Manager at BOC Group, focused on global expansion of our business. And we having the pleasure of welcoming today Aaron Tan. Aaron is a strong and passionate enterprise architect and passionate about digital transformation and the related fields. He is the CIO and Chief Architect at ATD Solutions, where they focus on delivering consulting, coaching, and training to upgrade and upskill companies in the Asia Pacific region to achieve their digital potential. He's also contributed as the president of the EA chapter and is a senior member of the Singapore Computer Society, and is the co-founder and chairman of the International Association of Enterprise Architects for the Asia Pacific chapter. He's an industry thought leader in enterprise architecture arena and has built a close connection with the industry leaders and government bodies in their respective Asia Pacific countries, which gives him an edge on staying on the beat on the latest technology landscapes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Aaron Tan on his presentation on driving innovation with digital enterprise architecture. Welcome, Aaron.
Thank you, Enrique, for the humble introduction. And let me just continue from here. And I'm Aaron. So welcome you all to this session. And it has been my pleasure to be able to join this seminar. And also, of course, thank you so much to BOC and also Enrique that we are partner to help our clients to embark into a successful digital transformation with enterprise architecture. So my topic is about driving innovation with digital EA. This is something very close to my heart because I think innovation is a key today for success, for a successful journey of any transformation. Because at the end of the day, when we have completed or along the journey of the transformation, we introduce new innovation to our business, to our enterprises, and also to our surrounding. Because innovation can propel us to the next level in terms of a successful ventures in our journey in life as well as in our transformation. So let me just give you an overview on the innovation. So this actually I borrow this from the image source that printed there on the screen. So there are a few things that about the innovation that I think is striking that we all need to know. The first thing is about the breakthrough. Right? When we talk about the innovation, it's about the breakthrough. Breakthrough means something that I don't do before, something that I never do it before, something I never thought that I could do it. So it's really giving us a so-called an opportunity to break through. Okay, so if I can relate to what enterprise architecture providing, actually is about understanding the motivation. Right? We need to define a clear vision and mission about what we are trying to achieve, and of course, talking about the stakeholder concerns. What actually our key stakeholders trying to do. And we also need to understand the driver and goals. That is very, very important if you want to break through something. And also requirement and observation. So we need to know this and we need to define this clearly. Because without knowing the requirement, what we need to do, and also the observation, what's going on, it's very hard for us now to break through to the next level. And of course, last but not least, we need to have a sound strategy and supported by a strong capability. With that, then we can do a breakthrough. So all these, the so-called the key on the word on the stakeholder motivation and the sub-bullet are pretty much so-called the vocabulary in the defining the architecture vision. Next, we need to do a basic research, right? In here, of course, we are talking about the baseline and the target. So we need to identify which area that we are going to so-called propel to the next level, right? In terms of innovating. Maybe the way we do our process, the way we handle our client, the way we do work, the way we process the information, the way our application and infrastructure need to be remodeled, right? So all these a process of identification, right? After knowing where we are heading. The next one, of course, we need to disrupt. So disrupt is something about testing, is something also about the so-called in the scope of the enterprise architecture or digital transformation. It's about disrupting means about the ability to really turn on, right? We're turning on something. So we're really disrupting not only our competitor, but ourselves. This way we are talking about solutioning, right? Because when we do the architecture, actually we are still defining the model, the concept. So when we disrupt, is we are really rolling out, right? So we are about realizing our architecture, we are implementing, and we are delivering a solution. The next one, of course, is about iteration or improvement. This is ongoing. So when we think that we have already innovated, but tomorrow we are going to do more. Okay, so this is what we call it the journey in terms of the architecture. This way we are going through the transition and iteration. And also we are continuing in our capability improvement. So our capability in today is higher than yesterday, but we want to do more. And of course, we want to drive the innovation and productivity to the next level. So when I'm talking about innovation and productivity, is touching every aspect of the organization, not only on the technology part, but also on the employee, the working environment, the processes, and also our customer relationship. And of course, there will be a matrix and KPI that is typically measured in terms of the maturity. So this is basically something that I still do believe that enterprise architecture playing a key role in driving innovation in the today digital era. So the next, I want to introduce you on the concept on the a framework on the engagement model for architects, because this is very, very important, because at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is at the outer layers. I know I've got so many layers here, but I want you to focus on the word transformation outside the box. Okay, that is something very, very key today for any organization in order to innovate. So basically, they need to have this type of the transformation. So if I look at the top there, they got thought leadership transformation. Thought leadership transformation means if you are innovating faster than your competitor, you are basically leading, and the rest of the competitor are basically looking up to you, right? So we need to have some sort of that ability to transform as a thought leadership. And if you go onto the right hand side at the top there, the customer journey. So we also not to forget about the customer experience. This is also something that we need to innovate, right? To make our customers stay with us and also loyal to us. And of course, skill set transformation is talking about innovation, the way we work internally. So we need to have some sort of platform for collaboration for all the employee in the using a digital platform. And of course, the bottom part is about information transformation, whereby information should be shared freely and also should be useful in helping the business to make decision making. And of course, on the left-hand side, operating model and digital business transformation is where we can transform the business, right? So basically, if we have the so-called enterprise architecture support within the organization, to drive innovation or transformation is a breeze. It's not a rocket science, but something is part of the day-to-day life. Okay, because we need to be able to innovate and to disrupt our internal ourselves rather than being disrupted by others, right? And of course, we need to measure our KPI and driving the transformation. So at the middle, the center is where the architect's playing a critical role. Okay, so if you can see, if the circle in the middle is like the ball, it's the air that the ball is holding. That's why the architect is the playing so-called the wave, bringing impact to the organization, right? Be it the business architect, information architect, software architect, infrastructure architect, or solution architect. So that's what a so-called a successful framework for the transformation. The next I want to quickly run through with you, because some of us that I come across, unfortunately, especially those who about my age started EA in the early days in the year 2000, they actually started at the wrong path, right? If you can see the path here, you can see my cursor. This is where around somewhere around 2000 is the peak. After that, the free fall to around 2012. Okay, so that's where I think many of the those who are earlier implementing EA, they are not to be too successful, because I think now the EA has already evolved. Like from 2013 is the term of the digital EA is getting popularity, because this is where the EA is totally different than in the earlier of the enterprise architecture. Okay, so there are quite a number of differences that I will highlight later in my slide. And of course, the next one is on the this Gartner predict in the 2014. So Gartner already made a prediction by 2025, which is about 4 years from now, that the world or industry or way we model something is inter and intra-connected. So we need to be able to see from inside out. So we need to see what the customer is doing. And also we need to be able to do outside in, or see on what our partner and customer looking at what we do, and also outside out. So how they can also push or propel our services to the other of their channel or distribution. So actually our world is super intra and interconnected. That's the Gartner definition in 2014 when they made a prediction by 2025. But I think looking at what COVID-19 struck us last year, I think this 2025 is happening now. Okay, so when you see this type of complexity, can we do the way we do today? Can we still implement the IT system that what we implementing today? The answer is no. We need to have some sort of the digital map, right? We need to be able to see the impact on what we do internally as well as to the external, right? The same thing when external factors also make some changes. What is the impact to us? So we need to have some sort of the platform. That platform is actually enterprise architecture, what I call it digital EA. So of course, we move on to the 2016. In short, that Gartner also mentioned that EA is the gateway for the digital transformation. So the gateway means the gate to enter for a successful digital transformation. Okay, so move on into the 2019, right? So if you see about the path 2009, I think Gartner made a prediction that enterprise architecture evolved into internal management consultancy. That is something quite encouraging because typically that EA team in pretty much in the many circumstances that they are not feasible. But now Gartner said you need to show your face. So you become a management consultancy to your management, to the senior management. Because typically this type of the role of the management consultancy is provided by the management consulting company. But now the EA team should have performed this role. This was in 2019. So move forward to the last year, 2020. Gartner made prediction again on the EA, right? That EA enable the intelligent organization. This is also very, very encouraging because what happened is that the world that we are living in, everything is going to be smart, right? We know smart cars, smartphones, smartwatch, everything is smart. But our organization, we have the data, but we can't really process that. That's why the EA team should be able to perform with the knowledge, with the information that they have at hand. They need to be able to transform an organization to be an intelligent organization. They mean organization that knows many things, right? So this is where the so-called Gartner made a prediction on the EA. And those who have successfully implemented EA, they have already reaped this benefit. Of course, moving on to this year, 2021, Gartner made another prediction again that EA designed the composable organization. There's something also very encouraging because today that we can work anywhere, we can work it's any geographical and any different time zone, different location. So this is where we can compose or decompose organization. This is where the EA, what I believe a digital EA playing a critical role in the today context. Okay, so of course there's a document that you can download in all the link that I have published here. Okay, so just to summarize on the what is the digital EA, actually digital EA is targeting for everybody. In contrast, on the early days of enterprise architecture targeting many IT folk, but in the digital EA is basically targeting those from the head of strategy, from the business architect, chief digital officer, chief customer officer, for them to get more insight on the business and also to understand more on the digital transformation opportunity, as well as how to enhance customer intimacy. And of course, moving down into the enterprise architect, technology portfolio, project portfolio, application portfolio, solution architect. This is where all the digital EA are providing a platform as a single source of truth for architect to model, to design, to analyze, to study the impact. Okay, about what the changes of the technology and business bring to the organization. And of course, for the investment manager, for the risk, for the CIO, is where they can quickly isolate. They can quickly get the so-called response from the digital EA platform itself in terms of the risk area that can possibly exist and what are the areas need to be isolated, right? And as well as for the investment, what is the so-called ROI on the particular investment? What sort of a problem statement that we are trying to address with this type of technology investment? So all these are so-called the capability of the digital EA platform. Of course, moving on into the command and control that, typically is that in the organization, they got a different team doing handling a different area. But actually, the enterprise architecture itself is uniting them. So basically, in terms of the alignment on all the strategic planning from the business, ICT, and the digital transformation. So need alignment with the enterprise architecture, as well as all the portfolio in terms of the project, portfolio planning, solution, and also change management, and also procurement vendor, all can be aligned with the enterprise architecture. architecture, okay, as well as the technology and the change management that enterprise architecture playing a critical role to ensure that change are done properly and the technology in terms of technology lifecycle and the portfolio are managed properly. So EA to drive the digital transformation, how do we do this? Okay, so first we need to know about what we do not know, okay, or what information that we have that we haven't processed. So basically knowing what's going on. So this is the role of information architect is very important. That's why I think in the last 5 years or 10 years, people are talking about data warehouse, business analytic, business intelligence. So all that is the execution, but the key actually is in the information architecture. Someone that architect and orchestrate where are the information coming in, how can we process the information, and how can we present the information to the relevant key stakeholders for them to make a right decision making. Yeah. Of course, the next one is flexibility. I think in today's world, flexibility is the key. If we are not flexible, likelihood that the business will abandon us. And likewise, if the IT system not flexible, likelihood they will be replaced. Okay, so we need to have some sort of the ability in our software and solution architecture. In terms of the flexibility, it's just part of the features that our system need to be able adapt into what's the business changes. So we need to be able to have us confronting expected changes. So not in the contrast of the people or system that are not flexible, they are having a resistance to change. So change is part of life, right? Like now, I think we have learned in the last 1 year that COVID-19, I think, forced us to adapt the change, right? To take change as part of life. Okay, same thing in the architecture. But if you don't have the proper enterprise architecture, changes it will be very difficult for your environment. And of course, infrastructure architecture also playing a critical role. We need to be able to adapt well, to respond with the right reaction, and of course, confronting unexpected changes. Right? I think we can see in the last 12 months that we have to access all the information, the data in our corporation from outside the office. In the past, that was not possible, but today, because of the COVID-19, I think we have seen that working. Right? So those organizations who have a very good, strong infrastructure architecture, they can do it very fast. Okay, and I know some of them are still struggling, but I think those who have done proper architecture, they can just move, implement these changes easily. Of course, last but not least, it's about business architecture. This talking about the productivity. We are talking about keep so-called improving our processes and efficiency. And of course, this is where the innovation takes place at the business layer. So we are basically applying all the the enhancement in our architecture, information, software, solution, infrastructure to help our business to transform, right? And also to innovate along the way, and also increasing their capability. Okay, so these are so-called the 4 domains of architecture that are very critical in driving the successful digital transformation and also driving innovation. So in terms of the so-called the life cycle, the processes, let me just share with you on the TOGAF part. I understand that TOGAF is a few days of training and quite a thick book, but let me just summarize it in just one slide. So in the preliminary phase, basically is that where the management get the support, right? Where the management so-called blessing the EA initiative, where we are prepare entire organization for the transformation. That's preliminary. So it's something that is very critical. That is the foundation for setting up the proper team, the proper structure, architecture, office, etc. So all happening at the preliminary. So once that one done, then we can move on into the phase A. Okay, just something to note on the TOGAF is that the interesting part of the ball, the ABCD, is like the wheel. So it's moving from left to right, and it will never stop. Once the ball roll, it will roll for many so-called ways to come. Okay, so let me just give you an example on the architecture vision. So architecture vision actually is part of the development of architecture building block, which is what they call it in the TOGAF is phase A, phase B, phase C, and phase D. Then after that, it will follow by the solutioning part. So solutioning part is where we are going to realize our architecture. Okay, the way we deliver the solution. So in terms of the architecture vision, actually here we are talking about implementing enterprise vision and strategy. And that is very important, because this is where we are driving our organization to the next level. Okay, this is where we are trying to achieve more. Okay, this is where we innovate. This is where we increase our capability. Then next, we are developing business architecture gap. So basically in here, developing the gap means we understand what we have and what things need to change. Okay, in order for us to fit into our next target architecture. Likewise for the data, application, and the technology. So we are identifying the gaps. The gap is the latter will be fulfilled by the solutioning part. Okay, this is where the solutioning part takes place, where we consolidate all the gap and we prioritize that into a project. Then we approving project plan, then we implementing the governance, execution. Then after that, if there is any changes. So when there's any changes, then go back again into the any of the ABCD, then go back into the EFGH again. So this is the life will be going on for the many years to come. So in terms of the how do we execute a digital EA, basically is that there will be a team that are formulating the strategy. So the strategy basically is the winning strategy for the organization. And in the past, we used to pass that strategy into the typical so-called project management team. What, of course, in today's context, they call it digital transformation team. Yeah. So, I mean, if you do that now, it's no different than what we do 10 years ago. But what we need to do now, actually, we need to go into the process of the digital enterprise architecture. Remember just now earlier on the Gartner slide that our worlds are inter and intra-connected, inside out, outside in, and outside out. Okay, so we need to know exactly about our strategy that we are trying to do. If we are trying to innovate on something, we are increasing our capability. We need to know the impact internally and externally. That's where the job of digital enterprise architecture is doing. So we need to understand the gap or the impact on the business, data, application, and technology before we consolidate the gap into the digital transformation execution. Okay, so instead of 1 to 3, we go 1, 2, and 3. Okay, because we want to play safe in the today era, because any hiccup that happen in the era of the execution of the transformation, it will cause a lot of time loss and monetary implication to the business. And of course, the next one is on the typical TOGAF framework, input and output. I think this is also another good summary for those of you who have learned TOGAF or who just discovered TOGAF. So something like the input in terms of the business vision, goal, driver, strategy, and stakeholder motivation. So these are the typical input on the architecture. And the output on the right-hand side is about enterprise capability and innovation. So architects don't deliver system, architects deliver capability and drive innovation. Okay, so how do we go about doing this? First, we need to have our capability framework in place. So what do I mean by capability framework? Basically, it's about all the team structure, the governance, the role, the skill set, and also the competency. Once that one is done, then we develop a methodology, right? How can we execute the architecture? It is just now the phases on the A, B, C, D, E, F, G on the TOGAF ADM. Then from there, we define the content framework, which is where enterprise architecture tools, continuum and tools. This is where I think the BOC playing a strong role in there, whereby have an integrated between, the ADOIT, the enterprise architecture part, and also the ADONIS, the business process part. Okay, and so far I think this is BOC is the only tool that have a seamless integration natively between enterprise architecture and the business. Okay, whereby the rest of the two are typically separated, right? So this is something the strong point of BOC that I come across. Okay, then of course, how does it work? Is that the input from the business? So the business are basically giving the requirement, right, on the capability that need to be developed. Then after that, on the left-hand side is where the architecture confirm to the business that this is doable and this can be done, and this also called the roadmap plan, right? Then after that, the capability framework, we execute the so-called the measurement in terms of the KPI, the budget, the roles, and the maturity. Then of course, architecture development method, we deliver the business solution through the project management. Okay, so one is roll out. This is where the capability is being delivered and innovation is being realized. Okay, so this is the concept on the TOGAF EA framework, input and output. Yeah. The next one, of course, on the realization on the transformation. So how does this work? So basically is that we need to have some sort of, when you want to innovate, you innovate at the top layers, okay, on the strategy layer, okay, where you have the idea, where you are so-called modeling your motivation, your goal, your driver, your principle, your outcome. Then from there, you can translate into the business. If you want to innovate in this area, which are the business that impacted? This is where the second layer kicks in. you're looking at the business architecture and also information architecture. Then after that, you look at the what technology at the bottom layer can support that. So you can mention here on the technology IR 4.0, you're talking about application architecture, you're talking about cloud, you're talking about IoT, sensor, robotic, etc. take place. In contrast, in many situations today is that many organizations straight away go into the technology IR 4.0. Then after that, they start scrambling about what business to change and what strategy to formulate. That's the wrong way. We should get from the top down, not bottom up. But once you go to the top down, the bottom up impact will be rolled out into the top as well, the impact. Right? So this is I think, the best practice that I come across in many organizations. They skip the 1 and 2, they go straight into the bottom part first. Okay, and at the end, they don't go anywhere. They still go back into the same states, even though they're using IoT or sensor. They don't have much so-called business value in their technology investment. So what we are trying to achieve as well here actually to define a digitally connected enterprise model, whereby all impact and connected model of the enterprise entity in terms of the strategy, business, information, application, infrastructure are fully digitally connected. So any changes that take place, it will so-called impact or it will be shown into the other layers. Okay, that's very, very important because we don't want any changes stopping our business. We want to be able to have a smooth transformation journey. So the bottom part, once we have that, then we can execute a lot of the transformation initiative. Okay, this is where you have multiple so-called program office, capability development office, service delivery, and support. Okay, so behind the scene, when you are transforming so-called modeling strategy, business, and technology, actually they got what they call it the first layer, which is where the business and IT strategy need to be integrated, right? Then from there, you identify the gaps, the impact in terms of the business, information, application, and technology. And the gaps, you consolidate all that to make it into the transformation project. So this is what I mean by just now, the first few slides on the, between the strategy, digital enterprise architecture, and the digital transformation. That's very, very important. Okay, because by skipping the number 2, normally the organization or the project team, it will not go anywhere. Even they can successfully deploy the project, but the maintenance will be stuck. Okay, because they don't have the blueprint on the so-called the changes that it will take place. So the model will be something like this. On the left hand side is where you see your physical world, that everything is that encapsulated by the people, by the process, by the knowledge, and by the technology. So it's very, very challenging to have a so-called united or digitally connected transformation. So what we need to do is that we need to create a digital twin, right? We need to model our motivation and strategy layers, right, by using Archimate. Then after that, we see the impact that bring into the business layer, and also the impact to the application layer, which application that need to be retained, to be replaced, to be migrated, to be updated, or to be procured new one. Likewise for technology layers. And we also need to look at all the information and the data layers that are impacted by the transformation. That's very, very important. And the last layer actually is about the ongoing project, that we need to make sure that our ongoing project are supporting our strategy and also our motivation and also our transformation goal and objective. So the concept on the meta model actually, this one one of my favorite because many of the enterprise architecture teams that I come across, they have the full architecture team, but they don't have the proper meta model, right? So this is something, the analogy to describe the meta model is like the component of this aircraft. Okay, you can see on the left. This is actually a fully digital aircraft. All the components are so-called registered into the meta model of the aircraft itself. So any component that are not working, they know exactly which other component will be impacted. Okay, and everything is labeled. There isn't anything in this aircraft that are not registered. Okay, so imagine if this aircraft is your organization, how many of your organization knowledge or information or artifact being registered? Likelihood today, well, your customer is registered in the CRM. Your accounting, finance registered in the financial system. Your sales, they got the sales system, and then they got marketing system, they got human resource system, and etc. But they are not fully integrated. So I want to make some changes. I don't know what's the impact to my accounting system. I don't know what's the impact to my marketing system. I don't know what's the impact to my human resource system, and etc. So by having the digital EA, we can connect all them so we can see all the impact, like this aircraft. The same thing now on the right hand side. We want to have the nice iPad, but someone may need to draw the motherboard. Okay, this is where the job of architects. Okay, so this motherboard, of course, in today's era is the digital EA, right? So that we can have a nice dashboard for senior management to make decision making. Okay. So the concept actually is that about mapping our real world today that are typically in the silo. So we need to map that, and we need to distill our world into the meta model. Basically, in terms of understanding the relationship, the impact, and also the dependency. Then from there, we can configure that into the repository, right? This is what the Android IT are very strong in it. They can you can configure all the meta model there. Then from there, you can create a dashboard for decision making. Like just now, my analogy on the iPad. Okay, someone needs to draw the motherboard, and the iPad we can use it, right? We can find it. You can create any application you want. Basically, it's no limit. Then this is the example on the meta model that, for those of you who are not familiar, but this is something that is the strength on the so-called digital EA. Okay, in the past, without the digital EA, you don't need to have meta model. Typically, you just do architecture on the governance, on the policy, on the solutioning part. But we need to make sure that we are defining a digitally connected enterprise. That's why we need to have a meta model structure like this. And of course, each of the meta model itself actually has the attributes that we can fill up. Okay, then the attribute will be turned out into a dashboard, like just now my analogy on the iPad. Okay, so this is, you can imagine that every square element in here is the database table. Okay, that you can store many information, and you need to define and segregate the enterprise into this type of the layers. Okay, so the layers are the motivation layer, strategy layer, business layer, application layer, technology layer, and implementation and migration. Okay, and all of the layers are interdependent. As you can see, this is just one example. And of course, this is example on the modeling a strategy, right? So for instance, is that in this context, like you want to have so-called the effective and efficient system for operation strategy. This is actually for one of the airport, right? In order for us to achieve effective and efficient system for operation strategy, we need to have two outcomes. Okay, so outcome number one is about process streamline and productivity increase, supported by optimized process management. Then we also need to second outcome about timely and accurate data for decision making process. So that one need to be supported by integrated information management. That is very key. So we need to connect all the information about the insight, about the data, anything that that the airport need to operate. Okay, and of course with that can achieve many goals, right? We can get improved passenger satisfaction, efficient airport, higher traffic volume, improve air traffic, and of course the private airport by airline operator, and eventually the world best airport. When you are at the world best airport, everybody want to transit at this airport. So you not to worry about passenger choosing other airline or airline operator choosing other lower cost airport. Okay, so this is just a model of a strategy using Archimate, and of course part of the digital EA. The same thing on the connectivity between business application and technology. So we need to be able to trace if there's any changes or any impact. We know exactly where the area of the enterprises impacted and at which layer. Okay, this is where we can so-called troubleshoot or understand about the consequences of our decision. Without EA, you still can execute, but it will take you weeks or months to know the impact is really impacted. Okay, so but with EA you can do it almost like few minutes. You analyze and you decide. Yeah, and of course the same thing on the when you model the application for traceability between business application layers, and of course you can also trace it to the technology layer. Okay, this is another example on the customer journey map or moments of life, right? That I think I have come across many of this model, but it's very common. These are like, all channels, all the faces of the customer point. Something that I want to highlight when we do so-called enterprise architecture is that this is where the so-called the digital EA capability, we address every channel. Because in every customer channel that interact with you, you need to know what are the business architecture, data architecture, application architecture, and infrastructure architecture gaps. Okay, so basically, at the end of the day, if you want to provide a smooth customer journey, customer experience, you need to fill up all the gaps. You need to acknowledge that there is such gaps, right? Like business gap, basically about the processes gap, right? About maybe the way the customer channel interact with you, with our organization. So we need to fix that. And also we need to understand about the data in terms of the what are the gap in terms of the data, the information that maybe our customer service team don't have and not integrated, and also what the customer expect to see. Okay, so we need to have this type of the information as well as application and infrastructure architecture gap. Yeah. So with that, we can also do understanding and model the target architecture after we know this. Okay, so by just doing a normal customer journey itself with the design thinking is not enough. Okay, it's not enough because I've come across many organizations just get that documented. After that, no much thing changed. They need to execute straight away with the enterprise architecture way. We straight away capture all the gaps and we execute the changes, okay, in our transformation, because we need from knowing the gap, then we can start innovating. Yeah, the same thing, the example on this, that we need to have some sort of indicator, right? Which one to change, which one to modify, which one to decommission. Yeah. Okay, the same thing like when we want to have a so-called improvement of the customer relationship, which are the information that are impacted. Then of course what sort of project that are interdependent and what sort of architecture state that we are talking about, right? So all these need to have so-called model properly. Okay, so this is also another example on the where the business layer itself, right, is connected with the application layer and also infrastructure layer. So this type of model are very key in today era of the transformation. This is what Gartner referring on the so-called inside out, outside in, and outside out. The model that I think many organizations today need to have for them to have a fast so-called transformation speed. Yeah, because now we are talking about people can transform almost every day. Okay, so if you know all this impact and you think that the impact no much, then you can transform quickly. Otherwise, it will take you weeks or months to transform. Okay, so this is basically a summary on the journey on the digital EA. So basically is that we want to have some sort of so-called digital map, but I think on the left hand side is where we need to have a proper framework that we need to establish. Then of course we need to have the like the ISA body of knowledge skill set, and we need to have the Archimate notation, and of course the BOC digital repository is there. And of course, there will be so-called digital transformation or EA readiness assessment that typically you need to know where you are first, right? Before you start the journey. Then from there, you model your motivation, you model your strategy. Then after that, of course, you look at your business architecture, you look at application architecture, technology architecture. Of course, they got in the middle got information architecture and security architecture as well as the EA realization, where you execute the project. And of course, there will be so-called the maturity assessment that need to be measured and also need to be upheld in terms of your level, okay, so that you can maintain your effectiveness and also the delivering value to the organization. Okay, with that, I think we hand over back to Enrique, and thank you so much for opportunity to share as part of the BOC conference.
All right, thank you very much, Aaron, for the very interesting insights on your presentation on digital EA. I think it was a lot of very nice digested concepts from your side, and I think that will help definitely a lot of us that are struggling and working through those same pain points and same challenges within the context of how to bring this digital transformation. So thank you again for your time and for sharing your insights. We'll definitely be sharing this with a lot more of our customers. And in that respect, also would like to thank everyone for joining the session. Of course, I'd like to invite you to, if you haven't already, and if you're not a customer yet, to try out AutoIT, as Aaron mentioned, really helpful in organizing all of the information to build up this digital twin of your enterprise. So feel free to leverage our free community edition. And for those of you who are existing customers and would like to reach out to your existing account managers for next steps with any of the topics that you've seen today. We'd love to, of course, connect you either with Aaron and his team or with any of our account managers. So thank you very much again for joining and wishing everyone a wonderful day. Take care.